My dad loved control, not the quiet, responsible kind, the public kind, the kind that needed an audience. So when our entire extended family gathered at my grandparents' house that evening, I should have known something was coming. The living room was packed, uncles laughing, aunts gossiping, cousins running around. Almost 30 relatives crowded inside one house. Everyone seemed happy, except me, because my father had been in a bad mood all day. And when he was like that, someone usually became his target. Most of the time, it was me. I was 19 then, old enough to make my own decisions. But in my father's mind, I was still a kid who needed to be controlled. He wanted me to follow one specific path: work in his company, study business, take over his office one day. But I had different plans. I wanted to study engineering. I wanted to build something of my own. To him, that wasn't ambition. It was rebellion. Dinner had just started when my father suddenly stood up and tapped his glass with a spoon. The loud clink made the entire room go quiet. "I want everyone's attention," he said. My stomach tightened instantly. Whenever my father asked for attention, it usually meant someone was about to be embarrassed. And tonight, that someone was me. He pointed directly at me across the table. "My son has decided he doesn't need to follow family rules anymore." A few relatives laughed awkwardly. My face grew hot. "That's not true," I said quietly. But he kept talking. "He skipped work at my office this week." He continued. "That's because I had a college exam." I replied. He ignored me completely. "So I've decided something," he said with a satisfied smile. "You're grounded." The room fell silent. Grounded? I was 19 years old. But my father didn't care. "No car," he continued. "No phone. And no leaving the house unless it's for work at my office." Some cousins looked shocked. Others avoided eye contact. But nobody defended me, because everyone knew arguing with my father only made things worse. "You can't do that," I said, trying to stay calm. My father crossed his arms. "As long as you live under my roof," he replied coldly. "You follow my rules." A few people chuckled uncomfortably. The humiliation burned in my chest. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. And then the front door opened. Everyone turned toward the sound. A man in a dark suit stepped inside, holding a leather briefcase. I recognized him immediately. My father's lawyer. But he wasn't supposed to be here. The room went completely quiet as he walked toward the table. "Sorry to interrupt," he said politely, "but this is important." My father frowned. "What is it?" The lawyer placed a thick folder on the table. Then he looked straight at me and said something that made the entire room freeze. Backhand index pointing right. "Actually, this concerns him." The room went silent, 30 relatives staring. My father frowned at the lawyer. "What do you mean it concerns him?" he asked. The lawyer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he calmly placed the folder on the table and opened it. Paper after paper slid into view. Official documents, signatures, legal stamps. My father's smile slowly disappeared. "I was instructed to deliver these documents today," the lawyer said, "in front of witnesses." A few relatives leaned closer, curious now. My father crossed his arms. "Well, what is it?" The lawyer looked at me again. Then he said something that made my heart skip. "This concerns the inheritance left by your grandfather." My grandfather! He had passed away 6 months earlier. Everyone in the family knew he had been wealthy, but nobody talked openly about the will. My father frowned harder. "That has nothing to do with him," he said, pointing at me. The lawyer calmly turned one of the pages and slid it across the table. "Actually," he replied, "it has everything to do with him." My father grabbed the document and read it quickly. Then he read it again. His face turned pale. "What is this?" he demanded. The lawyer's voice remained steady. "This is the final decision written in your father's will." Everyone in the room leaned forward. Even my cousins stopped whispering. The lawyer continued, "Your father transferred majority ownership of the family company." He paused, then finished the sentence. "To your son." The room exploded with murmurs. "What? That can't be right. Did he just say the son?" My father slammed the paper onto the table. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, but the lawyer simply pointed at the signature at the bottom. "Your father's signature, your father's seal, legally verified." My father looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. "This must be a mistake," he said. The lawyer shook his head. "It isn't." He closed the folder calmly. "Your father believed the company needed someone who would build it, not just control it." The words hung in the air. Every relative looked at me differently now, not with pity, with surprise. My father's voice grew tight. "So what exactly are you saying?" The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "I'm saying the person you just grounded," he nodded toward me, "is now the majority owner of the company." The room fell completely silent because suddenly everything had changed. And for the first time in my life, my father was the one without control. Backhand index pointing, right? He had no idea the person he humiliated was the one who now owned his entire empire. For a moment, no one said anything. The entire room felt frozen. My father stared at the document like it might suddenly change if he looked long enough. It didn't. My grandfather's signature was clear. The company he spent 40 years building was now legally mine. One of my uncles finally spoke. "So he's the owner now?" The lawyer nodded calmly. "Yes, majority owner." All eyes slowly turned toward me. Just a few minutes ago, I was the kid being publicly grounded. Now, the room looked at me very differently. My father stood there in silence, his face tight with disbelief. "This doesn't change anything," he said finally. I stood up from my chair. For the first time that night, I spoke without hesitation. "Actually," I said calmly, "it changes everything." The room stayed quiet. I picked up the document and looked at him. "You tried to control my future," I continued, "but Grandpa already trusted me with it." My father didn't respond, not because he had nothing to say, but because for once, control had slipped out of his hands. I didn't argue. I didn't humiliate him back. I simply walked toward the door. Before leaving, I paused and looked back at the crowded room. "At the office tomorrow," I said calmly, "we'll talk like professionals." Then I stepped outside, because the truth was simple. Power isn't about shouting louder. It's about knowing when the rules have already changed. Backhand index pointing, right? And the man who grounded me had just learned he was now working for me.